The world is waking up, and you finding your way here today is no coincidence. The spirit world always has a way of guiding us where we most need to be at the absolute perfect time. I'm your host, Lindsay Morlock, and you're listening to the Guided Podcast, where we explore how the spirit world works on our behalf to guide us along our paths. This is where you'll learn how to live a life that is both conscious and connected, so you can supercharge your pathway to healing and open to life's magic and miracles. Come along this journey to see how guided you truly are. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Guided Podcast. This week, I am so excited to be able to introduce you to Stephanie Rooker. Stephanie is a vocalist, voice teacher, therapeutic sound facilitator, mental health counselor, and founder of Voice Journey Sound Center. Her work combines practices of deep listening, somatic awareness, and a mindfulness, as well as exploratory techniques of improvisation, movement, song creation, and free-form creative flow. Rooker's Voice Journey approach is a holistic, integrative, and liberatory course of study and practice to deepen our connection with our voices, ourselves, each other, and life. Based on the idea that the voice is an intelligence or entity that accompanies us throughout our lives and that each voice carries its own unique medicine, this work is an exploration of who we are and who we can be and how we identify, express ourselves, and show up in the world. And I can speak firsthand to the power of Stephanie's work and her approach because I was guided to work with her in order to work on my own voice. And it was an interesting journey because I remember reaching out to her for voice lessons and feeling a bit embarrassed, like I was reaching out for singing lessons, but that wasn't really my intention. So I was sort of torn between, am I doing this to become a singer or am I really doing this to like heal my voice? And my intention was to really help heal my voice and my throat chakra. And Stephanie had come recommended to me by someone I knew specifically to help with that. And I was personally trying to launch the podcast at the time, and I really needed help finding my voice. And this was one of the people who helped me with that. So Stephanie, thank you so much for being here today. I am so excited to share you with my listeners.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. I'm really happy to be here with you too.
So to kick us off, Steph, can you share with our listeners how you even came to find yourself in this particular work and how your journey through this voice journey unfolded?
Yeah, totally. Well, it's been many chapters. I'll try to give the cliff notes of each of them. I mean, since I was a kid, I've been using music as medicine. You know, I sang like with my family as a child. My mom was a singer. My dad was an avid music lover, still is. So me and my siblings, we all would sing together. And but also I just really felt like growing up, DJ'd myself through heartbreaks and traumas and all nature of things. And I just always had this sense that there was medicine in music. And I ended up going to Oberlin College. And I thought I was going to be a voice major there. There's a really renowned conservatory, classical conservatory. They also have a great jazz program at Oberlin. And so I had auditioned for the classical voice major. I'd been studying classical voice through high school, and I was rejected. I was rejected twice, actually. I was rejected when I applied, and then I was like, that's cool. I'll go to the college and I'll be a voice major through the college because there's conservatory and college separate. And so then I auditioned again to be a classical voice major in the college and was rejected again. And of course, at the time, I was like, this is my, what? What am I supposed to do? But I stayed with it. And I ended up being so grateful that happened because classical music wasn't really my love. That was just like the track that I knew about. And when I didn't get accepted into that track, I started looking around and seeing like, well, okay, I still need to do this. I still need to figure out how I can work with music. And so I joined the ethnomusicology department, and they didn't have a full major there at that time, so I had to devise my own major. And initially wanted to do a major like music as abstract communication, and I put all of it together, and I was like drawing courses from all over, and they were like, no, you have to like go to school here. You can't just like if you're gonna do this, like it's not gonna. So I finally just was like, all right, why don't I just do an ethnomusicology major, which was incredible because that actually allowed me to study music from cultures all over the world. And I was really fascinated and very validated too by how music functioned for personal, communal, and societal healing in different cultures. Specifically, I studied music from West Africa and the diaspora. So that was really that, it's like a couple detours in there. And yet like it really, I really, now looking back, I'm like, whew, that was like great that, life kind of did take me where I wanted to go. And and then I did a little bit of professional singing in the city in New York. For about 8 years, I had a band and I was touring and putting out records. And then I had another detour where I had a moment. I put out my second record. I was super proud of it. And I was really expecting it to take me to a whole other place. And it just didn't. I hired a publicist. I tried to do all the things and it didn't happen. So, but at that same time, I started studying sound healing. I was doing a program at the Open Center, studying with a bunch of different people that work with sound healing, or I like to call it therapeutic sound. And again, it was like there was a fork in the road where I had to choose which way I wanted to go. And I chose to go with the therapeutic sound path. And that's where Voice Journey came from. I studied with a bunch of, not a bunch of teachers, but seriously, I studied with a few teachers who really, really nourished me and challenged me and helped me grow and develop what Voice Journey is now. So I'm still in awe of how I got here, actually. And then, the sort of latest turn in the path was I actually went back to grad school to get my master's in mental health counseling. So the work kind of was showing me as people's stuff comes up with their voices, like I was saying, I need some more skills and tools to help people actually process this instead of just holding space. So now I'm integrating that work too. And it's really fulfilling and magical. And I love my work. And I'm so grateful for all the turns my path took, because I wouldn't be where I'm at. So, yeah.
I love the story so much because hindsight's always 2020, right? When we can look back and see how we are connecting the dots and how all of the pieces fall together. But so much of your story resonates, especially where, it's like you were following your heart. You knew you had this passion, you knew music and the voice, and following that was the right direction. But I love how the universe kept redirecting you. And I think sometimes I know I'm guilty of this. We can sometimes take rejection to be, this means I'm not good enough, or this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. Or we can create so many stories and narratives about what that rejection means. But what I love is that you really kept up with the universe in redirecting you and kept trying and finding that new pathway with the ethnomusicology. And it's almost like you don't even know what you don't know and heading in that direction. But looking back, the universe knew exactly where it wanted to take you, and you being in the flow allowed yourself to be guided exactly where you needed to be. So can I ask you, was it hard when you got rejected? Like, what was that experience like? And did it feel, I'm making it sound like, oh, like you're just flowing with the current, it's all good. But the reality, right, can often be very different. So what was it like to really, lean into that and keep going and trusting the redirection?
Yeah, no, I was going to say that when you were saying the heartache and I was thinking, yeah, all that, like it was all that, I'd been studying classical voice, like seriously through high school, middle school and high school. And like, I was like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. My teachers were behind me, and then getting rejected twice, was such a heartbreak. And when I shifted from sort of a music industry career track to therapeutic sound work, it was like a breakup almost. Like it really felt like, oh my God, like this is the end, like full on breakup activity, like bathtub, candles, and a glass of wine, crying, like,
yes,
like
Ben and Jerry's in the bathtub, right?
Because this is a really hard transition. And yeah, it was really hard and really scary at times, and really just like, where am I going? What am I doing? And also those times, as everything, they change. We move through them however we can. And yeah, it was not easy. Like it's true. Like when you come back and tell the story, it's like, well, then I just did this and then I did that. And it was just, it was cool. But no, yeah, there was a lot of heartache and a lot of confusion, a lot of existential questioning.
Of course.
So all of that was part of it, and an important part of it too, because I really see, those struggles and challenges, I feel, are the things that help us grow and heal and, to have moved through that. I carry those things with me as like resources too. Like I made it through that. Something else happens, I can make it through this, or this will inform me if someone comes to me with a similar thing. Like I can empathize from my own struggles, my own pain.
Yeah. And the resourcing, right? How we build that, because you're talking about an internal resourcing and how we really build resilience from within. And I agree that's such an important technique to remember all the times, right? We all have 100% success rate of getting through everything that we've been through up to this point in our lives, but we forget that in hard moments sometimes. And so that's super important. I also think that, from my own work on this voice journey, I feel like you have a way of helping people use their voice to find internal resourcing. And when I started my own voice journey, I was shocked by how you had me make sounds and tears just started coming out of my eyes. And I'm like, wait, how are we using the voice? And suddenly we're in the waterworks portion of the event. Like you don't even realize. And I'm pretty sure I got to be on mute. Like I'm pretty sure I couldn't even be embarrassed that you could hear me because I don't know that you could initially. Right. So I know you see a lot of this, but what are some of the things that people are coming to you with and needing support with regard to their voice? And why do you feel like this is coming up more and more so much these days?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for all of that. It's so true. Like, yeah, everything you said is like ringing through me. To me, our voices are a way to connect with ourselves. In the intro, you said about how I sort of frame the voice as an intelligence, as an entity. I really believe that. I really believe the voice it accompanies us through our entire lives. It's been through if we think of it as a separate entity, almost a part of us, it's been through everything we've been through. It knows everything about us, sometimes reveals things that we don't want it to reveal. And so there's that very personal piece of it. And then there's the aspect of the voice that I believe is beyond us, right? It's like vibration. It's sort of our connection to the vibrational nature of reality. So there's sort of this a little bit metaphysical piece of it as well. That's like the energy of the voice is also something that we can work with. So it's this beautiful alchemy of really how we connect to ourselves, relate to ourselves, talk to ourselves internally, externally. How do we show up in the world? All of that. And that's all in the voice. And it's so underplayed. It's so underrated in voice work, how many sort of dimensions of the voice, layers of the voice there are. And so, yeah, I do really simple. I have people come to me from all different backgrounds of singing or speaking or, and levels of experience too. It really varies. I've worked with professional singers who are just kind of like, I don't know, I feel like I'm just a robot. I just perform and I don't get to be myself. I'm just doing the techniques the way I'm supposed to. I'm singing the song the way I'm supposed to, but I feel empty or, for an example. And then I have people who come to me who are like terrified of their voice, who have like had some experience where they were confronted with that fear and made the choice to step towards it and to say, okay, how can I meet this? How can I work with this? And so all different kinds of folks show up and yeah, some of the techniques are very, very simple and really accessible. And the power of them is like profound. Like you said, like a little bit of humming or something. And it's not unusual actually in my sessions, like just a little bit of humming one note and that sort of focused and intentional connecting and listening to yourself and feeling your vibration, your unique frequency, your resonance, all that. It can be a very moving experience for people and it can touch on a lot of really tender and profound experiences.
Yeah. And I think even something as simple, I was surprised by how simple some of the techniques were. And one of the ones that I use all the time that you taught me was just to sigh. If my throat felt tight, to just start sighing. And even before I start recording a podcast or I'm going to be teaching a course, I just notice now I just start like just trying to open that up. And it makes such a difference. But I think there is something about the voice that also allows you to be very present with what is happening in your body. And that was something I struggle with presence in general. But when I am using my voice and, as you said, trying to connect my voice and noticing that resonance of the voice within my body, there is something very somatic about the experience as well. And what's so nice about that is, I think for me, right, without necessarily coming with the intention of like, oh, I want to be a singer, right? I was able to just play, like this was a sandbox, and we were just able to play with the voice and see and notice what was coming up in the body with these different sounds. And when you get out of your mind around like, oh, this is embarrassing, I don't want someone to hear my voice, or, whatever the stories are that we tell ourselves, there is something very grounding about using the voice, whether it's just singing a random tune. I know we were doing some gibberish. That was the one that really threw me. But I'm wondering, your thoughts on using the voice as a somatic practice to really help people get into their bodies.
Yeah, totally. Well, the body is the instrument. And the amazing thing about voice is that we are the instrument, we're the creator, and we're also the recipient of the sound. So it's not like a guitar, like the guitar, it's its own thing. It's vibrating, but we can actually feel ourselves vibrating. And just like you said, that can facilitate a really beautiful deepening of our connection and our intimacy with our bodies and these amazing instruments that we live in. And, I love that you mentioned the sigh, because that for me is like a required practice. Like I'm like teaching a training right now, and I'm like, there's all these different techniques. The only one you have to do every time is the sigh, because to me, that's the technique that shows us how innate and natural this is. That we do that all the time. We do it naturally. We know, our bodies know that sound is going to help us, whether it's a sigh of relief, a sigh of exasperation, a sigh of whatever. And I always like to say, so our bodies know, and I feel like the body and the voice, I see them as like the intelligence of the body and the entity of the body, the entity and the intelligence of the voice. They're like so intimately interwoven. And and I always say with a sighing, I'm like, this is the one that tells us like none of this stuff is new, actually. Like we just forgot, or like our culture, didn't help us remember that we have this medicine, that we can use our voices. And, we can get into plenty of like reasons why voices have been silenced for, over the centuries, right? Millennia even. You said before, I didn't answer this part of your question before about why now. And I really think now we're starting to see that we need liberation. Maybe not starting to see, maybe we've been knowing that, right? I think more and more people are reflecting on what ways we are oppressed, what ways we are oppressing ourselves within ourselves, and what ways we oppress each other, and how do we heal from that? How do we heal from all of that? And so I think, there's a shakeup in the systems. There's a shakeup in cultures around what's really important, and how can we liberate ourselves from the constraints of the structures that have been harmful to ourselves, to each other, to the earth, right? So I think we're in like a big reckoning right now. And my position in that is like, I want help all the voices wake up. Like we need to hear all of them, especially the ones that don't get to be heard, that haven't been listened to. So like, people come to me and they're like, oh, I can't, I'm like, I don't know why I'm here. I'm like, I know why you're here, like this is it's important that we honor our voices, we honor our truth, and that we join the choir of existence,
Ooh, I love that. Joining the choir of existence. That's like quotable. I feel like, one of the things that I always noticed as we were doing work is you were having us, right, like connect with the vibration of our voice and notice our body in relation to it. Like, does something feel constricted when you make that tone? Does something feel more open? And I was always struck by how the experience changed doing the same thing. And it was almost like using the vibration. To your point, you always said like you have this trust in the voice, and like the voice knows what sound it wants to make and what sound the body needs for it to heal. And I was always in awe of how effectively that worked, because you make this sound and all of a sudden there's an opening, or there's more space created, or you feel this vibration around your body that starts to ripple out and extend beyond. And you start to get this impression of how expansive the energetics of the voice can be, right? And when we are stifling our voice, we feel it as some sort of constriction in our body, but it didn't take that many lessons in order to start really opening that up. And so I want to ask, I always think of the voice journey as there's such trust in it, especially like you take my observation of how you work. You always took a very intuitive approach. Like you just felt into what I was needing and always, led me in the right direction. So there's a certain trust that you have intuitively as you're being led through a session, but also you really trust the voice to do what it needs to do. So can you kind of talk about what led you to have that kind of trust in the voice and like even trust in your own life, right? All the connections that you've made, your redirections, even in your path, that all requires a lot of trust. So how has the voice helped you and others with that process of trust?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a couple pieces to that. One of them is listening, and another one is sort of getting out of the way, which is really about the mind getting out of the way. So what you said about you make a sound and you have this experience of this sound and it wasn't a sound that you knew what would happen, or you didn't even know what sound was going to come out of your mouth, but it did. And then this whole experience unfolded. And so there's we talk about liberation. It's like, what are so many of the things that constrain us are our mind and how we frame, how we relate to what our constraints are. Right. And some of those are self-imposed. I'm not good. I don't have a good voice, which I love to break down immediately. Like, okay, let's just put that over there and recognize the cultural relativity of good. And well, we can listen to some different good voices from different cultures and see how relative that term is and that metric. So something like getting out of the way of the voice and then having that experience of, whoa, what? Like, I didn't even know I could do that with my voice. I didn't even know I could feel this way in my body. Like, our voices can do so much. And a lot of the time we are in there trying to make something happen. Like, I mean, I don't do a lot of technical work. I'm not a big technique person. I am when it helps support, if someone needs that kind of structure to support them to go deeper in connection with their bodies or connection with their voice or to trust more, fine. But I don't do a lot of technique because it can become, oh, I have to do this to make my voice sound like this. And I have to do this and then we get this idea that like, I control it. I tell it what to do. And therefore, but how limiting that can be, because actually, like if you are able to get out of the way, get the mind out of the way, the voice can do things that your mind could never conceive of. And I've had that experience myself so many times that I'm like, dude, I just believe it. Like, the shit is real. Like, I'm here for it. I'm testifying. And like, so there's that. So there's the getting out of the way. There's the listening. There's like a great trust in listening. Listening is a fully receptive act. It's a full opening of yourself. And I love to teach. I love deep listening. I love Paulina Oliveros was a brilliant teacher and avant-garde electronic musician, had the Deep Listening Institute up here in upstate New York, about like listening as a fully engaging, like full body, multidimensional practice. And for her, it was like, that was spiritual. That was her spirituality, was listening. So there's that piece too, that like cultivates trust, like another thing I share, when we do sort of improvisation or song creation or whatever, I think of this amazing singer and native elder Joni Henry, who she's a song carrier, and she told me one time that the way she learned, you don't download songs, you don't create them, they are flying around. And if you have an intention for a song that you'd like to tune into, you just listen. And if you listen well enough, you can actually catch that song. And I love that, because it's not like this need to be brilliant or this process of I need to download, it's just like, actually, no, it's an opening of yourself. It's a listening, it's a catching, it's a taking a leap, a chance, and saying, I think I got it. Let me try, like that, right? This trusting.
Yeah. And that whole catch a tune exercise, I remember we did that in one of our sessions, and it was so powerful because we caught the tune. And then we also, and this might have been a separate exercise, but then we put like mantras to the tune that we caught. And it was such a beautiful way of, right, instead of, for anybody who might do morning affirmations or, it was such a beautiful way of me embodying, right, through vibration and sound, but also with the listening of like exactly what affirmation I needed. And there was something about it that felt more fun because it was to a tune that we caught. And,
Totally.
I loved that.
Yeah. There's a couple layers to that one too, Lindsay. Like it's actually a whole different neurological process to sing words than to speak them. And this is well known, well documented, well implemented in music therapy with people who suffer with dementia or Alzheimer's, right? Or brain injury, right? Where areas of the brain that control speech have been impaired somehow. And a technique that's utilized is singing. And singing can actually help the brain reroute the neural pathways to regain some of that speech capacity. So there's actually totally different things happening in the brain when you sing words than when you speak them. I mean, if you think about it, singing, it's like, if I'm singing this sentence instead of speaking it, I'm thinking of linear movement in my voice, right? Like, and there's like, I'm on a ride, I'm going somewhere, I'm saying the words, there's continuity, there's cohesion, but there's also like flow, there's also aesthetic, there's so many things that are kind of waking up in my brain. And so exactly what you said, for that reason, when you sing words, it's a really powerful thing. I have worked with, I do a lot of like song creation too with people, which is, I love. And I often say like, be careful what you write, be careful what you sing. Because, many times in my life, I've written music and then not that like, I mean, maybe there's some manifesting qualities there, right? And like, there'll be a time when I'm like, oh my God, I need this song. Like, this is the medicine I needed. I'm so glad, that I wrote this because now I have this song when I really need it. And when I wrote it, I just was like, well, that sounds cool, like, yeah, all right. But like, being careful what you write about is like being really intentional, because the power of words plus adding the voice in this creative process way is like really, really, really magical.
Yeah. And we also, I think, created a song for manifesting purposes. And what I think I loved about that, I want to come back to what you said about like getting out of your own way and getting the mind out of the way, because, sometimes when we're, at least for me, right, if I'm dreaming about things I want to bring to life, sometimes those other thoughts about all the reasons why that's not going to happen, right, are going to infiltrate and crap all over the dream that I'm trying to manifest. But there is something about singing, and I don't know if it's because it engages so many different parts of the brain, but there is something far more fluid about using music as a way to dream. So sometimes I will even find songs that are speaking to like what I want to create so that I can sing along and like get into the vibe of that, to use that part of the vibration to enhance the dreaming, if so to speak.
God, yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I call that sort of like personal storytelling in song work, like finding your experience in a song, in another person's, in a known song, right? Another person's song, and singing from that place. So, so often it's like, oh, you sing a song and like you learn the words, you learn the melody, and you're like, I like this song, I'm singing it, right? But the transportive capacity of music, like when we actually lean into that and say, not just like, this is a beautiful song, these are beautiful words that I relate to and I want to sing them, like, can I actually sing from that place of my experience, from, like you said, like that longing, right? That visioning that I'm wanting to bring forth, or the healing that I need, right? Like music, when we sing through ourselves, through our experience like that, it's just another dimension of it that's so powerful. And to me, like my favorite artists, my favorite singers, vocalists, I can feel it. I can feel their life through their singing. And that's what I want to like share and support and help people get to in themselves, is that listening, that trust, and that real vulnerability of touching something very tender in yourself and then like opening it and sharing it,
So what's it like? Can we dive into that experience? I know it's so individualized for every person that you work with, but just to give people a snapshot of, I think it can be very scary to, and it's vulnerable. I think that's a more, which
Mm-hmm.
can be scary for people, but I think that's how it was for me. It just felt very vulnerable. And yet you're so present with that feeling when you're using the voice that all sorts of things can happen in a session, which I know is what led you to get the mental health certifications, because you were seeing so much come up as a result of using the voice. So can you talk a little bit about all the different ways maybe that you see people learning to unleash their voice? Because we know the minute we set the intention to liberate our voices, everything that's out of alignment with liberation is what typically needs to come up and out. So what has been your experience with that with your clients?
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, it looks different for everyone. People always ask me like, what's a session like? I'm like, well, it's different for everyone. However, there is a flow, there is a framework that I like to work with, I like to move through. And it's sort of a progression. Like we start with some sort of somatic some centering of the body as the instrument. Remember, oh, I'm in the body. I'm not just a head walking around thinking about shit, so we start with something centering the body, then we move into breath. And the focus with the breath is experiencing the breath as energy, right? As like literally life force, right? Is like breath is life. Like as we're breathing, we're living. And so really getting very intimate with that in whatever ways. And they can be like meditate. All of these elements can have either meditative or exploratory or expressive or, so many different flavors, right? But these are the sort of phases of the flow. So after we move to breath, we always do sighing. And then we'll move into some kind of sound, like pure sound. So not necessarily singing. We might just do humming with one note. We might do some kind of toning, which is similar to humming one note, but you're open with a vowel, or some other sound practice that just sort of is opening up connection with the voice and how we can relate to the voice and move with it, or try to let ourselves be guided by it to, something, whatever happens, whatever unfolds. So yeah, then after the sound practice, we'll usually move into some sort of song or singing, or sometimes people want to do chanting. Yeah. So that's sort of the flow. And yeah, it's different for everyone. Everybody, like some people come in like raring to go, wanting to work on songs. And then we can really dive into a song and see like, what's in the way, what's in the way of connecting with this song. Is there some support that's needed? Is there something that's, that feels out of reach for them? And that can be approached technically. But I actually prefer to approach it like holistically, like we're talking about,
Can we dive
Some
into
folks,
that a little bit?
yeah.
Like what is often in the way for people? I mean, I know there's so many things, but are there themes that you see, or like some headlines of what is blocking people?
My voice is not good. I don't have a good voice. That's number one. I don't have a good voice. Or, variations on that theme. I need to make my voice better. Can you help me make my voice better? And always say like, okay, we need to put that over here. Because first of all, again, good is a relative term. It's not really measurable. And you can spend your whole life chasing that carrot, never reaching the good that you think it's supposed to be the way you sound. However, you can feel good right now with your voice. Like your voice, no matter what is, whatever's going on, you might even have pain, right? When you use your voice, in which case you can work with that as well. But by and large, you can feel good with your voice right now. And if you focus on that, how you feel with your voice, guess what? You're going to use your voice more. Guess what? You're going to get stronger in connection, in trust, in the actual physiology of your voice. You're going to gain range, you're going to gain endurance, you're going to gain power, you're going to gain nuance, you're going to you will strengthen your instrument too. And then like you're going to grow, you're going to evolve. It's going to go from there, right? And the whole time you get to feel good instead of not feeling good for 10 years trying to sound a certain way. So that's the major thing that people come with, is like, I don't sound good. I need to sound different. And that to me is like, people come to that in all different ways, but the classic one is, oh, my choir teacher told me to mouth the words, right? She told me not to do it, not to sing. But plenty of other ways that people get these messages that their voices are not to be heard. And yeah, that's sort of like a big piece for me, is like, No, we're here. We all can be heard,
And isn't that a metaphor for our entire life? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can feel good right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you happen to be utilizing the voice to help people learn how to be present in their current circumstances and feel really good in their body with the voice in relation to their voice. And yet it's the beliefs that prevent us all from speaking up, saying more, staying small, right? Like we all do that in so many ways. And I think that was one of the things that was so powerful about the voice lessons was it really did connect you to this, like the voice is a microcosm of the macrocosm, right? And like you could take this one instrument that you hold being your voice, and that served as this parallel for how we can be much more happy and fulfilled in our lives in general, right? Just feeling good now and getting out of that comparison trap and, right? Like literally just connecting to who we are, the differences that make us our unique selves, and really being able to liberate that part of ourselves.
Yes. Yes. And, and I want to say, and I love what you said. It's like I don't remember the words you used, but like that sort of internal liberation, because we know very well, external factors that constrain us, that oppress us, that harm us. And sometimes we can't change those. Sometimes that, many times, for some people who lived experience is really, really hard and painful and constrained and limited in all these ways. And stand by that. The voice is still can be a great resource in that way in terms of internal healing, internal reaffirming of whatever the messaging has, whatever the value of ourselves, despite whatever messaging we've internalized, right? And that when we can shift our relationship with ourselves in that way, it actually makes us more resilient against what may be harmful or what may be dangerous for us in the world. It makes us be able to resource from within. And that's, it's, so I really believe in that. I really believe in the voice as a medicine and as a tool for liberation in that way. And sometimes feeling good, like my tagline for Voice Journey Sound Center is like, sing to feel good, right? And like sometimes feeling good is not actually, again, good. Like sometimes feeling good is having that really deep cry, is actually connecting with the truth of what's hard or what hurts, or the grief of, this happens not infrequently, where people will experience joy or experience this type of freedom with their voice and then have a wave of grief for, oh my God, I have missed out on this. Like I have not had this for my whole life. I didn't get this before now. And like, that's important too, right? To honor that. And it's a really crucial process to move with those feelings as well. So yeah, I think, it's really about connecting with ourselves and relating to ourselves with, like you said, wherever we're at.
Yeah. And it's a powerful process. I think, one of the things I recently talked about loneliness on the podcast as, a disconnection from ourselves, right? That being where true loneliness kind of comes from. And I think using the voice is one of the ways that we can get reconnected to ourselves. Because a lot of times people will say, well, if sure, I can meditate or I can do this or I can do that, but like, how do you really connect with yourself? And there is something about the voice that helps to really be embodied. I never understood what that meant. Right. Like I heard the words, I understand what embody means, but like, what is the felt experience of being embodied and being present? And there is something about the voice that just is like whoomp, right? Like you have to go right within your body and be very, very present with the vibrations that are happening and just noticing. And it's one of the things that always brings me back to that embodied experience. And it isn't always comfortable to be in our bodies, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I agree.
Yeah, that was my experience. I'm such a fan. I feel like, one of the things I want to ask, especially, now that you're also bringing more somatic work from a trauma informed perspective into the things you're doing, how are you using the voice to help with trauma now?
Oh, so many ways, Lindsay. There's so many ways. I mean, I can speak to what first comes to mind is like parts work and this idea of, you know, for those who don't know about parts work, right? There's internal family systems. There's a couple different sort of approaches to parts work. But essentially, you know, when you think about the inner child, for example, like if one grew up in an experience where there was neglect, you know, like grew up in a household where there was neglect or there was abuse or there was any kind of harm like that, that at times, like there's a child part of us that can stay in that place, that can remain fearful that someone's always going to be there to hurt us. And so we need to stay hyper vigilant, or we need to not speak up. We need to not share our emotions because that's dangerous, right? And, you know, the way trauma projects past harmful experiences into the present as a protective mechanism, it's very real, right? And so, you know, a big part of trauma work, and everyone pretty much, I think, in the world of mental health is pretty clear that trauma lives in the body. And like, that's where we can't just talk it out. We have to go work with the nervous system and the body itself. And so with the voice, I find like we can actually, I mean, it can be as simple as humming to that child, like inviting that child into, you know, our sense, our felt sense, our awareness, and locating where would that part be in our body? Where would that child be? And does that child want to engage with us? So first of all, then we get some permission and make sure that feels okay. And then even just humming to that child part can be really, really healing, right? Humming with the intention of love for that child part. And, you know, as these things go, right? It sounds abstract. It's like, oh, I just hum to the child, but like, oh, right? Everything, almost any time I talk about this work, I always need to have the sort of disclaimer that it's actually really an experiential work. It's like, you can't really understand it until you experience it. And when you experience it, again, also in your own way, it starts to make more sense. You start to say, oh, I get it. Like, cause I really feel, cause there is that part of me. I know that part of me that talks, you know, that tells me, don't trust that person. They're going to hurt you, you know, that's vigilant like that. And then when you can direct the vibration in this way and your intention in this way, it really can reach that part. It really can, you know, it could be a hum, it could be a song. I have people write songs for their inner children too. Like, what does the little one need to hear? You know, does it need a lullaby? Let's give that little one a lullaby that it never got. And can we just hold that and let that be a resource? You know?
I can feel the soothing that the inner child would feel, almost like, right, like a mother's love nurturing, right, the inner child, or in the case of, right, the masculine energy, like a father's love nurturing that child. And I love the thought of using, it's funny, I do inner child work myself, but I hadn't actually thought about using the voice as a way of soothing the inner child. And that's what it feels like. It's a resource for self-soothing. I mean, and many other things that obviously we could dive into, but that is such a great idea. I love that. Yeah. Especially if music is something that your inner child really likes. And, you know, some people really gravitate towards music. Like for me, I feel like music is as important as breathing. Like I can listen to a song if I need to like evoke some sort of emotion. I just go right to the song that I need. And that music can just move energy through my body. Right. And so it can be a real helpful tool to get into the feeling of something that you're in the body trying to feel. And it can be a beautiful source of resourcing and support.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, the other piece of it too is like the somatic piece is like just regulating in the body. You know, it's like, and the sound is very efficient and effective. Like our bodies respond very quickly to sound, right? It's like when you're in whatever store and there's a song playing, you're like bopping your head, but you don't even know you don't even know why you're doing that. And you're like, oh, there's a song. We really respond to like music, yes, and pattern, yes, just sound, you know, alarms, sirens, like things. Like our system is like sound is a really efficient way to work with the nervous system. So that's another piece of it too, is like some of these sort of self-regulation tools can be sound-based as well.
So as you talk about self-regulation, are there certain sounds or tones that somebody could employ fairly quickly and efficiently, as you say, just to help bring a little bit more regulation to their body in a moment?
Well, we already talked about the sigh. That's a great one. The sigh is so good. And like,
right. And how easy is that, right?
And so easy. Just Yeah. And then like immediately as I did that, my head dropped, my shoulders dropped, my head wants to roll. I realized, oh yeah, my body said, oh, thank you. And showed me how it wants me to adjust now to help it more, you know?
Yeah.
So
And your breathing, right? I think that's a part of it that you incorporate breath into your sessions for sure. So you definitely emphasize the importance of the breath. But I think sometimes when we think about like, if you can remember the sigh, it also forces us to breathe, right? And like I always, it's like spirit always comes in on that breath too. And so as we're breathing it in and releasing it with that sigh, like there's so many things happening in that process.
Yeah, totally. The other sounds is just actually what I said, mentioned before with the humming, just humming one note like that. And I can break down why that's so effective. Humming one note from breath to breath, and whatever pitch you choose, I'm going to say right now, it doesn't matter because it's with this practice, it's best to just pick a note that feels comfortable. And okay, caveat, higher notes are more stimulating typically to the brain. Lower notes are more sort of, they say charging and discharging, right? So lower notes tend to be more sort of calming to the brain. So if you are falling asleep driving and you go, for like you do like a high pitched, like sustained sound, your brain is going to wake up a little bit, right? Low pitch is going to calm you a little bit more. So, but for this humming practice, just picking a pitch that feels good to you and repeating that same pitch from breath to breath, not worrying about how long it is, not worrying about how steady it is, just 3 minutes is like really all you need. And then take a minute or two after just to rest after this sound. So during that 3 minutes, you're actually stimulating your vagus nerve, which is the cranial nerve that is responsible for the rest and digest parasympathetic response in the nervous system. It touches all the major organs except for the adrenals, who that's not their job to rest. So, and the vagus nerve runs right on either side of the larynx. So as you're vibrating the larynx with this one note, this single frequency, you're stimulating the vagus nerve in a consistent and repeated way. People with they actually have for epilepsy, they'll actually implant a little electrode in the throat, in the neck, to stimulate the vagus nerve if someone's feeling a seizure coming on, to escape route that, right? To shortcut the seizure. So this is similar. Like you're vibrating, you're stimulating the vagus nerve. 3 minutes, you're telling your what you're essentially doing is you are stimulating a response that tells your body, I'm okay, I'm safe, I can relax. As we said before, right? Sometimes that's uncomfortable. That can be uncomfortable if we're used to being alert and vigilant, but just that one of my teachers, her name is Pat Moffat Cook, and she works with this humming practice. And she has this core of strength. She's also an incredible Vedic chanter as well, like very deeply studied and practiced. And however, I remember when I learned this humming from her, and she gave a challenge to the students of do it for, I don't remember how many days, like 15 days or 30 days, I don't know, whatever, to hum every day for just a couple minutes and see what happens. In just a few minutes every day, you'd be amazed at how different you feel, like how much more connected I felt with my voice, with my body, so this practice of just humming one note for a couple minutes, great for sleep if you have trouble sleeping, because it's right, it's down regulating your system and it's saying we're safe, we can probably get to go to bed, and it's okay to close your eyes and conk out. So that's one of the that's actually one of my go-to techniques that I share with people, is this humming practice, because it's really powerful. It's really simple. It's if you can make sound with your voice, you can do that practice. A really effective one.
Thank you for sharing that. The voice always goes with us, right? And so it's so nice to know that you always have this resource available to you. We just have to remember to use it.
Exactly.
So I always like to wrap up with a fun question, which is, how do you see magic and miracles playing out in your own life?
Oh, girl.
I know, as I was thinking, I was thinking about this question for you. I had remembered when you were telling me about this fun manifestation that you created this, I think it was an apartment, right? Using, using your voice. So I know it's happening.
Yeah. A little manifestation melody. That's right. That was another one of my teachers, Louise Montella. She taught that you write a song about exactly what it is you want, get really specific, and you sing that song every day, and you hold that feeling of what it's like. And so I was like, I don't know about this. And I tried it, and I wrote a song about this perfect apartment that I wanted, that had a dishwasher. I was living in Brooklyn at the time, and it had trees in the front and a yard and this and that. And like all these, I was like, I really went for it. I was like, I want all these things. And I'll never forget when I went and saw this apartment and I was like, oh my God. Like this is the apartment from the song.
It's awesome.
So that's one way. Like I really think, words are powerful, and also I'm not like super into like the materialistic manifesting bit, but I think the other thing, I think the most magical thing and miraculous thing for me is the listening. Just listening. Like I listen to I try to listen. I listen to water. I have a really strong connection with water. I grew up by a lake, Claytor Lake in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. It's the New River dammed, and I would just sit with the water and listen and like really connect with it, and be inspired and feel guided. And so I listen to trees. My favorite sound is wind blowing through trees, and when I listen to that, it's like something shifts in me. Like I fall into unity with the world, with nature. And when I feel like I'm in that state, so much magic is there. And and even down to like if I really listen to a song and really bring it into my body, and then I sing that song, it's like I listen to myself and feel myself singing that song. Like there's so much magic in that I really feel like it's everything to me. That piece, the listening, it's like listening is like reconnecting with like the oneness of existence, right? So miracles, and when I listen, miracles happen. When I'm tuned in, when I'm not just on a head trip, like trying to figure it out or trying to make shit happen or trying to do whatever. If I actually just like listen to my body, what is my body telling me? My body is so brilliant. Like our bodies are so brilliant, they do so many things. And so when I can tune in and listen and join in that sort of resonance and communion with my body, with the world, with other people, when I can really listen with other people, can really be with them and not be in my little separate ego head thing that is like whatever it's doing, So yeah, listening. That's find the magic and the miracles.
And I feel like you really embody that superpower. I have, even your presence when you're in session with someone. I mean, I can speak from personal experience, like you're really listening. And I can always tell that you're never rushed to respond. Like you're really listening and just very present. It was always something that I really admired about you because I'm very much in my head, and it's a practice for me to have to be that present. And you model it very beautifully.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's true. It's a practice. It's definitely a practice. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, how can my listeners support you?
Well, support me by freeing your voices, y'all. Like do that. Do some humming, do some sing more, right? I mean, like I said, like my mission is to like help wake up all the voices. So, and there, and I'm doing this work. I'm working now the psychotherapy practice in Kingston, New York, Maverick Psychotherapy Group, doing mental health counseling, but also integrating voice work there. So I'm not teaching as much. I'm working towards my licensure hours in the state. So I got to get that piece of paper, and then I can like do whatever I want. Although Maverick kind of lets me do whatever I want. They love the voice work, so that's cool.
I love when psychotherapy practices are, you see this more and more, incorporating more of these holistic modalities as a way of supporting their clients, which I love.
Yeah, it's so special. So I'm not doing as much individual teaching. However, I am training people. I have a couple of people that have been working with me for many years, and we've been doing the last 2 years. We've been doing a training. I'm getting ready to start a new training in the spring. So yeah, so I have people. If people want to work with people and do this, do some voice journey, I can. If they want to contact me, voicejourney.net is my website. It's about to be a new website, but it's not there. But you can still get on there and contact me. And yeah, and getting involved in this work, it's easy, and it can be done over Zoom. Like you said, you don't even have to have your mic, unmuted. You can just do your thing and experience it yourself. So yeah, I think that's about it. Like I'm excited about starting this new training in the spring. And hopefully we'll get that available for folks to check out too, if they want to inquire more deeply into this work.
Well, thank you so much for being here today and sharing all of your wisdom about the voice and its medicine and all of these things. I'm so grateful.
Oh, thank you so much, Lindsay. It's really a pleasure. I love this time with you and where we went with it.
Me too. Thanks again. Thank you so much for listening to the Guided Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I would be so grateful if you would share it with a friend or even leave me a review so we can ensure that it makes its way into the ears of listeners who need to hear these messages most. Until next time, may you remember how guided you truly are.